as a trader or a swing trader or even as an investor, it's so important for us to kind of think outside of the box, because when any one side becomes too big in terms of hearing that narrative and only that narrative, it tends to draw us in, and we really want to stay independent to really see what the truth is, right? And so for me, it's looking at the charts, and the charts are the clearest, most precise way to get through the noise into reality. And so, for instance, if we look at the Bitcoin chart here, Bitcoin actually showed us that a mini breakout was going to come in, right? So you have this pivot high, which was your FTX high pivot, down to this high, and you could see how price was kind of going here. It crept above, paused, kind of retested that line, and then it's gotten this little bit of a bullish move. Now, as soon as we get the first bullish move, we start hearing about, oh, the bottom's in, we're going to go to new all-time highs in 3-6 months. In reality, that's not what it's telling me, right? So this is a short-term bullish move, which is inside of a bear market. But the biggest thing to me is this high pivot right from the FTX collapse. So if price were to get above that, like let's say we do have an incredible bull run and we take out this psychologically significant high,
We know the cryptocurrency market is highly volatile and subject to sudden changes in sentiment and market conditions. But we also know that having the correct information at the right time can be highly profitable or even save your life from disaster. 2022 was one of those years that wiped out a lot of investors in crypto and, more specifically, in Bitcoin. But if these people knew some of the things Gareth will explain in this video, they could have saved their wealth. Gareth Soloway is the co-founder and chief investment officer of In the Money Stocks and Verified Investing Crypto, and is known for his powerful insights and prediction on Bitcoin. In today's video, he will explain what you need to know to avoid losing everything and how the next big bull run in Bitcoin can happen. So pay close attention until the end.
So I think 2023 is going to be a transitional year, and that's exciting for me. So it's not to say that I still don't think Bitcoin might head down a little bit lower, but I think it's going to be the key year where it puts in a bottom. And I actually think that it will start to become the asset that everyone has hoped it would become, which is kind of a safety asset, an asset where when the government is printing money, it actually does, become the safe haven, or when the economy is going badly, I actually think it becomes the safe haven. So I do think that coincides with regulation. So I do think 2023 is going to be a really intriguing, interesting year, full with lots of opportunities.
What is the only way to make money with crypto?
As a trader or a swing trader or even as an investor, it's so important for us to kind of think outside of the box, because when any one side becomes too big in terms of hearing that narrative and only that narrative, it tends to draw us in, and we really want to stay independent to really see what the truth is, right?
And when can we expect a crazy bull run to happen in Bitcoin?
Bitcoin actually showed us that a mini breakout was going to come in, right? So you have this pivot high, which was your FTX high pivot, down to this high, and you could see how price was kind of going here. It crept above, paused, kind of retested that line, and then it's gotten this little bit of a bullish move. Now, as soon as we get the first bullish move, we start hearing about, oh, the bottom's in, we're going to go to new all-time highs in 3-6 months. In reality, that's not what it's telling me, right? So this is a short-term bullish move, which is inside of a bear market. But the biggest thing to me is this high pivot right from the FTX collapse. So if price were to get above that, like let's say we do have an incredible bull run and we take out this psychologically significant high, which was when FTX collapsed, then to me, now you can talk about the potential for a low is in and maybe a new bull market is on the verge. But as long as we're inside of this is a classic bear flag pattern, right? So, you basically take the drop and this inside chop, and that's bearish overall. So again, it's just the purity of the charts where you can have these little intra-bear market rallies, but until significant pinpoint levels are taken out, you have to be in the camp that we're still in a bear market. That means Bitcoin and crypto is vulnerable for more downside, and you want to be protective against that. For me, the if price were to eclipse this big move down, that would be a potential trend change for me. But for me, there's a couple things that I worry about with Bitcoin and why maybe it hasn't quite bottomed yet. Number one, in past cycles, in bear market cycles, price has dropped 80+%. We haven't dropped that much yet. We're getting close, but we haven't dropped that much in Bitcoin's price since the all-time highs in 2021. And then I think you have to look at it and say, here we have the Federal Reserve, and this is the first cycle bear market where Bitcoin does not have printing money going on. And so the question is, does that mean the bear market low is going to be less or more of a downside move? And again, to me, it would make sense that it would be even a little bit worse because the Fed is not printing money. And again, one of the things that I'm really keen on is if we can get regulation in the space. I know a lot of people don't want regulation, but I think after you saw what happened with FTX, you need transparency. Then I think that could be a catalyst for the next bull run leading into the halving in 2024.
A bull run on Bitcoin now would be incredible, but according to Gareth, for a bull run like this to happen, markets need to flush out the bad actors like Sam Bankman-Fried and shitcoins that have no use cases or value. So, like a giant tree set in crypto. But would Bitcoin survive that?
And I personally do see the need for Bitcoin. I think that Bitcoin was created out of the ashes of the financial crisis and the Fed printing money and the idea that governments just printing money is not sustainable in the long run. And I do think that even though the Fed is being resistant to lowering rates and doing stimulus, there will be a point where the economy gets so bad that the Fed will have to print again. And again, the idea hopefully is inflation is low enough where it doesn't make inflation go into some sort of hyperdrive. But I do think that that's the reason Bitcoin has been created, is to be that digital gold. Well, maybe it wasn't created initially as the digital gold, but I do think it is going to become that. And I do think there's a need. I mean, if you look at various countries, third world countries, the way that so many of their citizens are now using Bitcoin, that's the need there. For me in the US, the reason I hold some Bitcoin is for the idea that the dollar will eventually be printed and no longer be the reserve currency of the world. And so it gives me a store of value versus the US dollar. So I do think that either way, even through this nasty bear market, Bitcoin will survive. I think a lot of the alts won't survive. Maybe the top 20 will, but I think for the most part, you'll see a big cleansing of the crypto markets. I'm in that camp too. That's one of the things that bothers me about people calling the low of Bitcoin or the low in the crypto markets here is that you haven't seen a cleansing. And the answer, you have to say, how do thousands and thousands of coins survive in this environment? And I just don't think that that's a true flush out. Like if you look at the .com era, there were a ton of .coms, and by the way, the .com era, as you know, it was the same kind of thought process. You had so much money rushing into these things. They were penny stocks that became $1, then became $10, then $50 stocks, really with no reasoning behind. There was no fundamental reason behind. You could argue that they were shit coins, right? I mean, they were essentially the same thing. And so when the .com bubble collapsed, many of those went bankrupt. Some got bought out, but it really was a consolidation to a point where you had a few mega players that survived and everything else went out of the industry. And I think that's where we are right now. For me, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this doesn't strike me as a bottom. I don't see the fear and panic in the crypto markets right now amongst retail investors that tells me there is a bottom yet. So yes, you can have bull market rallies within a bear market, but to me, it just can't be, it likely shouldn't be the low just yet.
And what would be needed for Bitcoin to create new higher highs and make us all profitable? The halving.
The halving always works to the advantage of Bitcoin. Anytime you have it become more expensive to mine, that's going to force supply to be cut down on new Bitcoins hitting the market, and therefore price has a tendency to move up. But having said that, I think that it's just one piece in an overall much, much bigger puzzle for Bitcoin moving up. So for instance, we mentioned it before, but if you get regulation, I think that draws in big money. And I'm one of those, I'm more of an investor. Right. I'm an investor, so I actually want big money, institutional money involved so that price goes up much, much more than it otherwise would in a shorter amount of time. And so I think you need that. You need that institutional involvement. The only way you're getting that is with some sort of regulation there. So I think regulation's a key. I think the halving is key. And I think ultimately cleaning out the industry of these FTX type scenarios so there's trust, right? I mean, when you have a situation where investors don't even trust having their money on exchanges, that's problematic. I mean, that's horrendous for the industry. And so if you can build that trust back up, that's an instant winner in terms of potential upside on Bitcoin along with the halving. For me, the biggest thing would be some sort of regulatory reform where there's a forced transparency, there's a mandatory audit, maybe 4 times a year of cryptocurrencies. I think for me, that would be the most, that would make me, I mean, I can just speak from my personal viewpoint, but right now I have some investments in Bitcoin and in crypto. I would be much more willing to put a lot more money into crypto if we had some sort of, transparency, right? And so even, and I'm not a whale by any stretch, but even I would feel more confident putting money in if I felt more secure about the industry as a whole and the fact that there's hopefully no more bad apples like Sam Bankman-Fried or anything like that. So I think that's a key one. The other thing on a technical chart, and I'll just throw this out, is that one of the things that got me bullish in the last week or so, looking for this pop in the near term that's materializing, is we saw lots of negative news. I mean, we saw, I think it was something with Gemini going on. We saw other things that were very negative. And what we saw is price was not declining. And one of the key things I look for is when there's negative news stories and price doesn't go down, it tells us there's accumulation going on. And ultimately, you can see the results here with a nice little move to the upside. So that's more of a technical point.
Did you take value out of this video? Want to see more? You can click the comment section below or visit our channel for amazing content from Gareth and other crypto experts that may help you profit or save your wealth. And please remember to leave a like and subscribe for more daily crypto. Thanks.